Hello, hello. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. As always, we are here for this week's live Monday music motivation. Welcome, welcome. Today I want to talk about something that I think is not that often talked about, and I think is actually one of the most helpful sort of performance anxiety or just general sort of performance skill things. There are a few performances that I was listening to last week as I was teaching and things, and it really dawned on me that in performance, students don't necessarily know what to think about, and sometimes they're thinking about the wrong things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's one of the worst things that you could think about in a performance, and hopefully give you some alternatives for ways to think about. So this happens all the time where you're practicing really hard and working on something, and it's going really well in practice, and then the performance is coming up, and you go out on stage to do the performance, and you're like, okay, this is it. Like, this is showtime. This is where I'm gonna do my best run through yet. And maybe those little tempo things that I didn't quite get up to tempo, like now it's the performance, so I'm gonna push that tempo just a little bit, and I'll get that. And now is the performance, so I'm gonna be a little bit more expressive than normal, and really go for all the musicality. And now's the performance, so I'm gonna work a little bit harder to like really get those runs exactly clean and nail those kinds of things. And it's the performance, so I'm gonna just relax and not think too hard and just let the muscle memory take over because I've practiced a lot, and that's what should happen in a performance. And probably all of those things you may have thought at some point in a performance for yourself, or listening to those now, you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty good advice. I'm gonna try those things in my next performance. But all of those things were bad things to be thinking about in a performance. The sort of number one thing, the kind of main idea, the main takeaway for this is never try to do your best in the performance, which I totally understand sounds completely counterintuitive, and you're like, why shouldn't I try my best in a performance? And to some extent, I'm being like a little bit facetious. I don't mean like don't try or try to do bad, of course. Like, yes, you want to do your best, and the goal is to do your best, but don't try to do your best. That's a really subtle distinction that I think is very important, and I think something that throws people off really bad in performances very often is they're like, okay, it's the performance, now I need to do a little bit better than normal, I need to try a little bit harder than normal, I need to be a little bit better at this piece than normal so I can do my best, and so that the performance can be the very best run through I've ever done. And it would be wonderful and amazing if the performance was always the best run through that we've ever done. There are no professionals that I know of who do that consistently. It's just not something that happens. Every now and then we'll get lucky and have the performance be our best run through of something. But I think if you ask any professional, they'll almost always say like, nah, I usually do a little bit better in the practice room, and if I could get it to go the best that it's ever gone in the practice room on stage, then I'd be very, very happy, which is, there's ways to work on that, but it's definitely easier said than done. So we don't want to be thinking about doing our very best. And the other angle to that too that makes it really challenging is that's when the performance anxiety really ramps up, because you're thinking like, okay, this is the performance, this is my time to do it better than I've ever done before and do my very, very best. And then the second something goes wrong that isn't your very best, it completely destroys your mindset, because you're like, oh gosh, I made that mistake now this didn't go as well as it went in practice, so now this performance is over and bad, and then you're just kind of trying to get it over with for the rest of the performance, which I have 100% for sure experienced firsthand in performances, and that feels terrible to be thinking that way in a performance. So the alternative is to not try to do your best and instead just do what you normally do. And if you're happy with how it's going in practice, then you don't need to do anything better than that in the performance. You just have to show what you've done in practice. And that's also maybe a practice mindset thing as well, where in practice, we want to be playing pretty much how we would want it to go in the performance, more or less as often as possible. Of course, when we're going under tempo and we're slowing things down and simplifying and doing smaller chunks and practice rhythms and those kinds of things, like, it won't go that way in performance, and those are different kind of practice tools. But we want to get to the point where once we've learned a piece and we're really comfortable with it and we have it in long-term memory really well, we're practicing in such a way that this is how it's going to come out in the performance. And if in our practice, as we're leading up to a performance, if we aren't able to very consistently do performance run-throughs of it that we're happy with, then it's very unlikely you're going to be happy with the performance. You need to, in practice, get those performance practice, get that retrieval practice going in ways that feel really good and feel really comfortable and confident. And then when you go out on stage for the actual performance of it, it feels like just another practice run through. And that, I think, is the right mindset to be having. It's just another practice run through in good performance mode, retrieval mode, like you hopefully are practicing pretty regularly in your practice. And you're just sharing a practice run through with the audience, with all of the details in there, all of your best playing, but it's not, I've been practicing one way and now all of a sudden I'm going to go out there and play my best a little bit faster, a little bit more expression, a little bit better sound quality. Don't do those things. Get that a little bit faster tempo. Get that little bit more expressive. Get that little bit better sound quality. Get all of that in your practice run-throughs and then go out on stage and do a practice run-through in front of people. That's the right mindset. Performing is no different than practicing, at least performance mode practice. So go out there and do that. And that will lower the performance anxiety so much, because then you're also open to and accepting of mistakes too. Because in practice, you're like, oh, that little thing went wrong this time, but that's not the end of the world. Just because one mistake that never happened in practice before happens in performance, it isn't the end of the world. And for everything that didn't go quite as well as it had gone in practice, there will be hopefully and very likely an equal number of things that go just as well, and probably some number of things that are actually better than you've ever done it. But if you're trying to do it better than you've ever done it before, you're going to crash and burn. So that's the motivation for today. And don't forget to fill out our practice template. That's the other important part of these Monday music motivations, right? So you can see mine. You can go to quickstartclarinet.com/get started to get this exact template, or just make it for yourself. We have the date for the week, reflection of how things are going for you, your goal for what you want to accomplish this week and what you're going to work on, and then your plan for when you're going to work on it and what you're going to work on when you're working on it. The goal for this and the next step after you get that filled out and know what your plan is and what you're trying to achieve this week is to put it in your calendar, set reminders, put it in your planner, however you organize your life to actually schedule those things to happen, because it's all good to have a goal, but once you have that goal scheduled, then it's much more likely for it to actually happen. So that's this week's Live Monday Music Motivation. If you have any performances coming up, just treat them like a practice run through in front of people, and make sure in your practice run throughs in actual practicing that you're 100% getting all of the details that you want, just like as if it was the performance for real, so that there's less difference between practicing and performing, so that you have more practice with the performing. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Fill out your practice template and have a fantastic week of practice, and I will see you next time on the next Live Monday